Sometimes it's the smallest towns that bury the darkest secrets. Mill Creek, Oregon. Population 2,984. Was a kind of place where people left their doors unlocked, trusted their neighbors, and raised generations under the same old roofs. But one bark from a retired K-9, a harmless growl in an old basement, was all it took to unravel everything. What the cops found behind that wall not only solved a cold case, but shattered the illusion of safety this town had clung to for 2 decades. If you appreciate slow burn, true-to-life thrillers, consider subscribing. It helps us keep telling stories like this one. The dog's name was Rook. He wasn't supposed to be there that day. Retired 3 years, partially deaf, mostly gray-muzzled now. Belonged to Officer Dana Reese, who had kept him after his service, claiming she didn't trust any human partner as much as him. The call had come in just after 7 a.m., a cold Thursday morning in late October, the kind where breath fogged the air and boots sink into the wet leaves blanketing the sidewalks. Vacant house on Holcomb, the dispatcher said. Owner's kid came to clean it out. Heard something in the basement. Thought maybe a raccoon or squatter. Dana rubbed sleep from her eyes, zipped her fleece up to her neck, and glanced at Rook, still curled up at the foot of her bed. He looked up at her like he already knew he was coming along. The house on Holcomb had been empty since the spring. Old brick colonial, paint flaking like dry skin. Belonged to a woman named Eleanor Voss, who died of a stroke 6 months earlier. Her son, Greg, had come back from Portland to settle the estate. Basement doors in the kitchen, Greg said, standing in the front yard, arms folded, eyes tired and red-rimmed. I heard knocking down there, like soft. Thought it was plumbing at first, but then it started moving around. Dana nodded, hand resting near her hip holster, but not quite drawing. Did you go down to check? Greg shook his head. Not after what I heard last. Sounded like breathing, too low to be an animal. She glanced at Rook, who was sniffing the air, his ears pricking. Okay, let's take a look. The kitchen was dim and smelled of mothballs and vinegar. Dana flipped the light switch. Nothing. Power had been cut months ago. She took out her flashlight and opened the basement door. It moaned, actually moaned, on its hinges, with stairs descended into pitch black. Rook, she said softly. He moved beside her, tail stiff, posture alert. Together they descended, step by creaking step. The basement was colder than the house above. Earthy smell, damp concrete. The beam of Dana's flashlight swept across dusty shelves, paint cans, forgotten tools. Nothing unusual, until Rook stopped. He stared at the far wall, unpainted cement blocks, near the old boiler, and let out a low growl, then a sharp bark that echoed off the basement ceiling. Easy, Dana whispered, but she stepped closer, frowning. There was something odd about that part of the wall. One section of cinder block was cleaner than the rest. Less dust, like someone had wiped it recently. And there were hairline cracks between the blocks. Cracks that didn't match the age of the house. She tapped it with her knuckles. Hollow. By noon, the entire block was cordoned off. Mill Creek didn't have a full-time CSI team. But when Dana called in the sheriff, told him what she suspected, he didn't hesitate. We're bringing in forensics, Sheriff Klein said, jaw tight. Don't touch that wall till they get here. Dana nodded, but her stomach was already in knots. Her fingers still tingled from touching the cold, hollow wall. Greg stood outside smoking, hands trembling. What the hell's going on? He kept asking. She didn't answer, because she already had a gut feeling. And that feeling came with a name. Miranda Hayes. Miranda Hayes had been 17 when she disappeared. High school senior. Blonde hair. Quick laugh. Scar on her upper lip from a dog bite when she was 6. Last seen leaving a party on Westlake Road. That was November 2005. A cold night, a full moon, and no answers. They searched the woods, drained 2 creeks, questioned everyone. The whole town grieved. Dana had been a rookie back then, still learning to write reports without getting carpal tunnel. And now, 20 years later, she was staring at a basement wall that felt like a crypt. They brought in a demolition crew just after 3 p.m. sledgehammers. Crowbars. A heavy silence. The first block came out with a scream of cracking cement. Dust billowed. Then the second, then a third. And then, Jesus Christ, someone whispered. Behind the wall was a cavity no more than 4 feet wide, maybe 6 tall. A false chamber. Inside it, curled like a child, was the skeleton of a girl, tattered fabric, still clinging to her bones. She was wearing a necklace, a silver pendant shaped like a star. Dana turned away and closed her eyes. She remembered that necklace. Miranda wore it every day. Word spread like wildfire. By sunset, Mill Creek was in mourning again. The local diner turned off its neon sign. Candles appeared on the Voss property fence. And everyone had the same question. The envelope was yellowed, stiff at the corners, like it had been sitting in someone's drawer for a long, long time. Dana stared at it in her palm for a full minute before she slid her thumb under the flap. Inside, a single sheet of lined paper, torn from a notebook, folded 3 times. The handwriting was tight and slanted, like someone trying to fit too much truth into too little space. I never wanted her to die. It wasn't supposed to go that far. She was just supposed to leave town. Not this. You'll find the rest when you're ready. Forgive me. No name. No signature. Just that final plea, like a whisper from the edge of a grave. Dana read it again. And again. Whoever wrote it knew Miranda. Not just in passing. Not just that girl who disappeared. There was guilt here. Real, bleeding guilt. And whoever they were still out there. She folded the note, set it beside her badge, and stared into the dark window for a long time, watching her own reflection fade into the night. The next morning, the town of Mill Creek felt different, heavier, as if the fog hadn't lifted and wouldn't for a while. At the station, the lobby was half full by 9 a.m. People with theories, memories, suspicions. Everyone suddenly remembered something they'd forgotten for 20 years. I saw her walking with someone that night, said a woman named Myra Kessler. Tall man. Hoodie. Could have been anyone, I guess. I always thought that Voss boy was strange, muttered another, sipping burnt coffee. Too quiet. Too clean-cut. Greg Voss had left town again after giving his statement. Claimed he needed to settle paperwork in Portland. His alibi was tight. Too tight, Dana thought. But he didn't have a record. No violent history. No motive. At least, not one she could prove. That afternoon, Dana returned to the house on Holcomb. The basement was still taped off, the cavity now lit by flood lamps and flanked with evidence markers. The skeleton had been removed, sent to Salem for full examination. But the image of her, Miranda, folded behind that wall, stayed with Dana like a bruise. She stood at the edge of the room, staring at where the bones had been. Forgive me, the note had said. Forgive who? She looked up at the ceiling joists. Old beams, warped with time. And then, instinctively, she looked behind her, to the shelves near the stairs. One shelf was newer than the others. Dustless, recently moved. Dana stepped closer. Taped beneath it, hidden where no one would think to check, was another envelope. Same handwriting, same paper. Inside, a photo. A girl in a red hoodie, arms folded, chin tilted down, smiling with something sad behind her eyes. Miranda Hayes. The date stamp on the back read November 4th, 2005, the day before she disappeared. Tucked inside the photo was a folded scrap of newspaper. Mill Creek Teen Wins State Essay Contest. The town that keeps its secrets. Dana stared at the headline. Her mouth went dry. She remembered that contest. Remember Miranda reading her piece aloud at the school assembly. Sometimes the quietest towns are the loudest ghosts. You just have to know where to listen. Was that the warning? Was she trying to tell them even back then? And who kept this? Why? Back at the station, Dana pulled the old case file again. Miranda Hayes had been seeing someone in secret. That much the investigation hinted at. A relationship no one seemed to know about. No one except her best friend, Kara Linden. Kara had moved away years ago. Married, 2 kids, new last name. Dana found her number through a friend of a friend. She picked up on the second ring. Detective Reese? Kara's voice was cautious. I heard about the news. It's her, isn't it? It's her. Silence on the other end. A long, shaky breath. I figured. I hoped it wasn't. But I knew. Somehow. You were close, Dana said. You were the last one to see her that night. I didn't tell everything in the interview back then, Kara said suddenly. I was scared. Scared of what? Of who she was meeting. She didn't say his name, but she told me he was older. Said she'd found someone who finally listened to her. Took her seriously. Dana's got twisted. Older how? Kara hesitated. I always thought it was someone from school. A teacher. Maybe someone she met through church. But she wouldn't say. She just said, he's going to help me leave this town. Dana's pen paused above her notepad. Did she say why she wanted to leave? She said, because people smile too much here. And they don't mean it. That evening, Dana drove out to the old school building, now abandoned, condemned for black mold and water damage. She stood in the parking lot as the sun dipped low, shadows stretching across the pavement like reaching fingers. She remembered the way Miranda had looked on stage. Nervous, fierce, brighter than most kids twice her age. And she remembered the teachers. All of them. Kind, tired, underpaid. Except one. Who built that wall. Sheriff Klein kept things tight. Forensics worked late into the night, cataloging every inch of the chamber. Hair samples, fibers, bone fragments. But Dana had a deeper question chewing at her ribs. Why here? Eleanor Voss had been a respected woman, churchgoer, retired schoolteacher, lived in that house for 50 years. Never so much as a parking ticket. So how did a dead teenager end up entombed in her basement? And who put her there? Later that night, Dana sat at her kitchen table, staring at old case files she hadn't seen in years. Polaroids of Miranda, smiling. Interview transcripts, names long buried. She looked down at Rook, curled by the heater. You found her, old boy, she whispered. But what the hell did we find? Rook lifted his head, stared at her with those clouded eyes. Then he barked once. Dana jumped. A deep bark. Not at her, not at the heater, at the kitchen door. She stood slowly, crossed the room, opened the door. Nothing there, just a cold night. But on the ground was an envelope. No address, no postage, just one word scrawled in black ink. Forgive, Mr. Emmett Bowles, history teacher, late 30s at the time, tall, unmarried, always had a strange, off-kilter vibe about him. Left town shortly after Miranda vanished. Said it was to care for his mother in Montana. Dana pulled his name up on her laptop. Nothing criminal, nothing strange. But there it was, clear as ink. Moved back to Mill Creek in 2022. Living in a small rental off County Road 9. She drove there in silence. The house was modest. Gray shingles. A sagging porch. A garden overrun with ivy. She knocked. A long pause. Then the door creaked open. And there he stood, older but unmistakable. Emmett Bowles. His eyes flicked from Dana's badge to her face, then to the car idling behind her. Detective Reese, he said with a faint, unreadable smile. What brings you out to the woods? They sat on the porch. I didn't have anything to do with Miranda Hayes, Emmett said before she even asked. I know that's why you're here. I didn't say her name yet. He tilted his head. You didn't have to. Dana watched him, watched the way his fingers tapped the arm of the chair, like he was waiting for a train to come and take him far away. She was in your class. She was brilliant, smarter than I deserved to teach. Did you help her with her essay? His smile faltered. No, he said, then added, she didn't need my help. Dana nodded. Why'd you leave town right after she vanished? His eyes darkened. Because people like me don't get the benefit of the doubt. Single man. No wife. No kids. I saw the way folks looked at me after she went missing. I figured if I stuck around, they'd find a way to hang it on me. Did you ever see her that night? No, he said quickly. I didn't, but I wish I had. He looked away, jaw tight. Because maybe I could have stopped it. That night Dana couldn't sleep. She kept seeing that word again and again. Forgive. Who wanted forgiveness? Who thought confession would wash the blood off? She got out of bed, turned on her desk lamp, and opened the original crime scene photos again. But something was wrong. She stared at the photo of the wall before demolition. Dust patterns, smears, a faint trail, a print, a handprint, and not just one. There were two, one above, one below, as if someone had been pushed in, and someone else had sealed the wall from the inside. Dana's blood ran cold. That meant someone else was in there with her. The handprints haunted her. Dana stared at them under magnification, blowing up the grainy photo until it blurred into pixels. One set higher, a pushing angle, another lower. Fingers spread, smudged down the wall, like someone trying to claw their way out. The final horror came when forensics confirmed it. Two sets of prints. One matched Miranda Hayes. The other? Unknown. But the partial ridge pattern didn't match any local criminal files. Dana requested it be cross-checked with state and federal. That would take time. She didn't have time. It was raining again when she drove back to the Voss house. Everything looked the same, except for the candles along the fence now flickering soggy in the wind. She stood in the basement, flashlight steady, and counted the blocks again. 1 row, 2, 3. The chamber hadn't been built hastily. Whoever constructed that wall had taken care, done it slow, maybe not in panic, but with grim determination. She ran her hand over the concrete. This wasn't a dump site. It was a tomb. Whoever sealed Miranda and hadn't wanted her to disappear. They wanted her never to be found. Later that afternoon, Greg Voss returned to town. Dana caught him unloading a rental car in front of the house, eyes sunken, jaw clenched. He paused when he saw her. "I thought I'd come back and finish what I started," he said. "My mom's house still needs clearing." "You left in a hurry," she said casually, "right after we found her." "I panicked," Greg admitted. "I mean, Jesus, detective, that was in my childhood home. I used to ride my trike across that basement floor." She watched his hands. They didn't tremble. "Not now. Did your mother ever mention Miranda?" Dana asked. "Any connection?" Greg shook his head. "Never. But my mom, she wasn't exactly open about things near the end. Said strange stuff. Would leave the TV on static and just sit there. Like, what kind of strange?" Greg paused. "She once told me, the walls know more than I do. I thought it was dementia." Dana didn't answer, because the walls did know. They just hadn't been speaking until Rook barked. Back at the station, the feds returned with a partial match on the second fingerprint. It belonged to Alma Voss, the mother. Dana sat down hard. It didn't make sense. Eleanor Voss had no criminal record, no violent history, and yet her partials were found pressed against the interior of the wall that held Miranda Hayes. Was she the one who sealed it? Was she the one who pushed her in? Or was she in there with her? The autopsy confirmed what Dana feared. Miranda had not died immediately. She'd been alive for at least 18 to 24 hours inside that wall cavity. There were deep gouges in cement, consistent with fingernails, and the bones in her right hand showed fractures from pounding, screaming. No one heard her, but someone knew. The coroner also discovered something else. Miranda had bruising on her left upper arm, older, maybe 2 or 3 days before death. Finger-shaped, the kind left by someone grabbing too hard. Control, restraint. It was becoming clearer. This wasn't an accident. This was planned. That night, Dana drove the back roads of Mill Creek. The rain had eased, but the skies still churned, heavy with more to come. She wasn't sure where she was headed. Not until she found herself pulling into the church parking lot. The old stone chapel sat quiet, lights off, but the rectory behind it glowed faintly. She remembered something from way back. Eleanor Voss used to volunteer here. Choir mother, fundraiser head, Sunday school. She knocked on the rectory door. Father Thomas opened it. Older now, stooped, eyes sharper than ever. "Detective Reese," he said. "Thought you might show up." "You know why I'm here?" I always figured this town would dig up its inn sooner or later. He let her in. Inside, warm tea steeped on the stove. The smell of lavender and old paper. Dana sat across from the priest at the kitchen table. You remember Eleanor Voss? Of course, he said. She was complicated. Faithful, yes, but haunted. By what? He looked down. She came to me once, long before Miranda disappeared, maybe a year prior. Said she was worried about her son, that he had crossed a line. Greg. Father Thomas didn't answer directly. She said the line between love and possession is thinner than we like to believe. Dana leaned forward. Did she say he hurt anyone? She didn't use the word hurt. But she cried. I'd never seen her cry like that. Did she confess something? Father Thomas looked up at her, tired. She said, I wish I could undo what's coming. And I asked her what that meant. She just whispered. He promised her the stars, but buried her in the dark. Dana left the rectory with a gut full of lead. Back in her car, she replayed the words. Buried her in the dark. She pulled out her phone, called Kara again. I need you to be honest with me, Dana said. Back in high school, did Greg Voss ever show interest in Miranda? There was silence, then a slow exhale. Oh my God, Kara whispered. You think it was him? I'm asking if she ever mentioned him. Not directly, Kara said. But now that you say it, there was one night. She came to my house crying. Said someone threatened her. Said if she didn't leave with him, he'd make sure no one else ever would. Did she say a name? No, but I remember something else. She was holding this bracelet, real fancy, silver. Said it wasn't hers, that he told her it meant she belonged. I asked her where she got it. She just said, from someone who never learned to hear no. It hit Dana like a cold wave. She drove straight to the evidence lockup, requested the belongings pulled from the chamber, the silver star necklace, tattered clothing, and tucked into fold of Miranda's coat. Missed the first time, a small velvet pouch. Inside, a bracelet, silver, delicate, with an inscription on the inside. Yours forever. Gee. Greg was arrested the next morning. He didn't fight, didn't ask why, just sat in the interview room, hands folded like a child caught red-handed. You told her you loved her, Dana said, but she didn't want you. So you told her she could leave with you. And when she refused. Greg looked up. I didn't kill her. Dana stared. I didn't, he said louder. I just locked the wall. That's all. My mother, she's the one who... He stopped. Go on, Dana said quietly. Greg's eyes filled with tears. I heard Miranda crying through the wall, he whispered, and I couldn't open it. I didn't know how. I was scared. My mother said, she said if I did, they'd take everything from me. He broke. It was supposed to be symbolic, a clean break. I didn't know she was still alive when we sealed it. You walled her in alive, Dana said. Greg looked at her. No, he whispered. My mother did. I just helped her mix the cement. After the confession, Dana drove back to the Voss house one last time. The basement felt colder now, like something had truly left it or been released. She stood near the wall, fingers brushing the jagged edge. She imagined Miranda's face, her voice, her essay about secrets and ghosts. And she imagined Eleanor in those final years, sitting alone in her chair with the static humming beside her, the weight of it pressing like stone. They'd both lived with it, one buried behind bricks, the other behind guilt. 2 graves, only one with a headstone. Dana stood in silence, staring at the crumbling wall. The echo of Greg's confession replayed in her mind. She was still alive. I didn't know what to do. My mother told me it had to be done. A chill ran down Dana's spine. It wasn't just a crime. It was a calm in Greg's voice. Not panic, not rage, just obedience. Like he'd followed instructions from a higher power, or a mother he couldn't refuse. Back at the station, Greg sat alone and holding. He hadn't asked for a lawyer, hadn't touched the food, just stared at the floor, muttering something under his breath. Dana walked in. What did she promise you? she asked. Greg looked up slowly. That I'd be free. Free from what? He gave a small, broken smile. From myself. Meanwhile, the lab results on the cement mixture came back. Buried in the concrete, fibers from an old quilt, red and white stitching. Same pattern as one found in Eleanor Voss's linen closet. She'd wrapped Miranda before sealing her in, not to hide her, to comfort her, to forgive herself. At home, Dana reread the note left on her doorstep. I never wanted her to die. You'll find the rest when you're ready. Was there more? Another letter? A journal? The attic. She returned to the house and climbed into the dust-choked crawl space above Eleanor's bedroom. In a shoebox beneath a stack of old hymnals, she found a diary. Inside, short, uneven entries. She's in love with him, but he'll break her. I warned him. He called me weak. She said no. He didn't stop. I heard her crying. I told him to fix it. He said he did, but I felt her there, still breathing, scratching the walls. Dana closed the diary with shaking hands. Eleanor hadn't walled Miranda in. Greg had. Eleanor had discovered it too late, and in a twisted act of love, she helped him finish what he started, so no one would ever find out, not because she hated Miranda, but because she loved her son more. The next day, Dana stood with Rook at the cemetery. They watched as a plain coffin, long overdue, was lowered into a fresh grave marked Miranda Lynn Hayes, 1988 to 2005. The town came. Kara cried. Greg didn't. He sat in the transport van, wrists shackled, watching from behind tinted glass. And Dana thought about the worst crimes, how they're not always committed out of hate. Sometimes it's the love that turns deadly, the love that won't let go. The funeral was over. The town tried to move on, but something clung to Mill Creek like smoke after fire. At the station, Dana reviewed the file one last time. All the evidence pointed to Greg, but something still itched beneath her skin. There was one question he'd never answered. Why Miranda? That night, Dana sat across from Greg again. Tell me the truth, she said quietly. Did she love you? Greg stared at the wall. She pitied me, he finally said. I thought it was love. I needed it to be. And when she said no, I begged her not to leave. She laughed, not cruelly, just like I was a boy again. He looked down. I built the wall because I couldn't stand what I'd done. Dana's voice was ice. You buried her because you were ashamed. Greg didn't speak, but his silence said enough. Later, as Dana was locking up the file for good, a new message came through. A letter from Eleanor's attorney, found in her will. Dana opened it carefully. It was one line, handwritten, folded into the legal paperwork. My greatest sin wasn't helping him. It was raising him to believe he was owed anything he wanted. Dana sat in her car for a long time afterward, watching the leaves fall across the station steps. Rook lay beside her, head resting on her lap. The case was closed. The girl was buried. But the damage, that kind of damage, doesn't go away. It just settles deeper, like bones in concrete. 3 weeks later, the town started whispering again. Not about Greg, not even about Miranda, but about the house. Some kids dared each other to sneak into the Voss place. Swore they heard a girl humming in the basement. Swore something knocked once, then twice from inside the walls. Dana didn't chase the stories. She knew better. It wasn't ghosts. It was guilt. Mill Creek had buried more than one body. She went back just once. The house was scheduled to be demolished, officially for safety, unofficially for mercy. No one wanted it standing. She walked through the empty kitchen, the peeling linoleum, the spot where she'd first opened the basement door with Rook at her side. He barked then, and now he was gone. 2 weeks earlier, she'd laid him to rest beneath the oak in her backyard, his grave marked with smooth stone and a name scratched in by hand. Rook, 2011 to 2025, loyal to the last bark. She stood at the top of the basement stairs one last time, listening. Silence. Greg pled guilty. No trial, no drama, just a sentence. 35 years without parole. He never asked for appeals, never asked for forgiveness. In a letter sent from prison, addressed only to Detective Reese, he wrote, "I keep hearing her. Not her voice, just her waiting. She's still in the dark, and I can't stop thinking she's still breathing. I don't want peace. I don't deserve it." Dana folded the letter and never read it again. Kara helped start a scholarship in Miranda's name for girls in small towns, girls who felt unseen. Because she would have gotten out, Kara said, holding back tears, if someone had listened sooner. And that haunted Dana more than anything. Not the wall, not the grave, but the chances they missed to save her. Fall turned to winter. One morning, snow dusted the ground like ash. Dana lit a candle on her porch and sat with a cup of coffee, her badge resting on the table beside her. She didn't think about Miranda. She thought about Eleanor, about Greg, about the way love turns into possession and silence becomes violence, about how easy it is for a whole town to look away. At dusk, she walked to Rook's grave and laid down Miranda's necklace. Not for justice, not for closure, but because some things don't get solved. They just get carried. Quietly, forever,